So my name is Marta. I am Spanish and I've been working in tech for a very long time. Already from college, got a degree on computer science, and I landed my first job in testing accidentally as a grad student, and then I continued working in testing since, both in Sweden and here in London. So it's been quite a while.
I'm Joss. I'm a product manager, and I look after the checkout and post-purchase part of the journey on our site. I got into product actually working in digital consultancies and agencies, working on a variety of different technologies, websites, hybrid apps, native apps, across multiple sectors like financial services, pharma, and data science.
I think from my perspective, it's definitely been a shift focusing more towards the individual being people and important assets for a company, not just cogs in the wheel that you can, use and dispose as you see fit. And I think that's brought a really welcome change in terms of how to be able to do your work and still keep a good work-to-life balance. It just increases flexibility and the way you can tailor how you work to something that really works for you and not just the company.
Yeah, I think as well as becoming more inclusive, because tech is now a very attractive industry to work in, it's become less corporate and talent is so sought after that the people working in the tech industry are defining how that culture is set up from company to company. And like Marta said, it's flexible, it's about trust and empowerment, and if you're getting your work done, that's the primary aim. It's outcomes focused. If you can deliver on what you need to achieve, how you get there is up to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not like it's not a 9 to 5. You need to clock in, you need to clock out. As long as you do your work, then you're free, which is really good because it didn't used to be like that at all.
I think so. I think it's a cycle. You get a few women who are involved in tech or getting those kinds of jobs, and then other women see it's for me. I can do that too, and then it just creates more and more openness and more people joining the tech industry. I think also, from my perspective, I'm not a developer. I'm not technical. I come from a humanities background, and I still work in tech, and I still am very much involved in what goes on day to day. And I think that's nice as well, that the education around it's not just a bunch of coders sitting in a dark room not talking. Yeah. I think breaking those stereotypes really helps.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely become an easier world to work into. I think as well that historically, I don't know why it has been so much more male dominated. When I did my degree, we were something like maybe 10% women in it, and I think now those things are way different. There is a lot more women thinking that they can, and it's partly because tech is getting a reputation for being flexible and being the kind of job where you can actually have a career and have a family at the same time, which for many women is important. But also because, like Joss is saying, it's a cycle, and there is a lot of women in tech that are being outspoken and showing other women, particularly younger women, like we've done with the work experience thing at Made, for example, that yeah, it's a good thing to do. And just because it's tech doesn't mean it's just for guys. We can. Smaller pool to begin with. It's much harder to find women just because there aren't any. And that's a problem that needs to be addressed even at education levels and entry levels. And it's an interesting one because while I was in Sweden, I did some part-time work in teaching, and I was teaching programming to early year students in college. And it was fascinating how many of the girls just had this mental block of, this is tech, I can't do it. And that's the kind of thing that I think it's breaking down now more and more, but it still needs to be addressed at that point, because that's what widens the pool. If you don't have anyone that wants to do it, then you're never going to get anyone to do it. It's really hard that way.
I think like that is the problem at the moment, and hopefully it will even out more. But I was more involved in recruitment at my previous company, and I think just learning some things about, you know, using tools that can identify gender bias in job specs. And again, it's the cycle. If you've got a mostly male company, they might not be thinking about that. So it's how do you develop that awareness, and then how do you take steps to actively combat implicit bias or trying to make it a welcoming environment to women? Because I think if it's a mostly male workplace, they might not be thinking, oh, a woman wouldn't want to work here. It's just like, oh, because it's fine for us. Yeah. So I think things like identifying gender bias, understanding that, I read somewhere that, you know, that in a job description, you've got all the requirements, and men will look at it and they'll just be like, oh yeah, I meet a few of those, I'll apply anyway. And women will have to feel like they tick off at least like 80% of those before they apply. So how do you encourage women who, you know, the small pool of women out there to apply? And I think it's making it as open and approachable and like available as much as you can to get them to actually get a foot in the door. I think it starts from there, and just making sure that you don't shy away from it. I still think like being a woman, like you have a family, I don't have a family, but it's not something that you talk about, that you feel comfortable just being like, oh, well, yeah, I might want a family in a couple of years. It's like, oh, how would that impact my career? How does the workplace feel about that? Luckily, like MAID is very clearly, it doesn't need written out explicitly. It's very obvious from the way that everyone behaves that it encourages
particularly
that.
in tech.
Particularly in tech. But for other companies who are looking to increase the number of women that they have in their workforce, don't shy away from questions like, what about families? Or if it's a boys' club at the moment, is that going to stop me from being able to progress? You know, it's harder to make those connections. Do you have groups for women and female-led initiatives? I've always worked in places with those kinds of groups, and it's nice.
I also think, and this may be a bit controversial, that you have to work with the guys as well, because I find sometimes, like in terms of family flexibility, for example, you offer parental leave to both men and women, but it's more often the women that take it. But if you make a point of saying, hey, look, we have 4 of our guys are on parental leave at the moment so that their wives can focus on their career for a while or whatever, or they have shared parental leave and all that stuff. That to me speaks volumes, because I know as a woman I can take it, but I want to make sure that if someone else doesn't want to because they want to focus on their career, their partner would be able to do it if he was working for MAID. So it's not just focusing on the women in your company, in your industry, it's what the men in your company can do for women outside their company that then may want to join. So that kind of things often doesn't get thought about. And it's also not about parental leave only, because flexibility applies to work-to-life balance in every areas of your life. So what happens if you really like to travel? For example, you may not want to have children, but you may want to be able to travel as long as you can do your work. So why not? It doesn't depend on whether you're a woman or not, but it's that kind of things I think make a huge impact on how women see a company in order to apply to it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's like, women are scared of saying I want a family, but men are having the families too. Exactly. Why is it such a big deal for women?
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it. I think it needs to stop becoming a big deal. It needs to become something normal. Who takes the parental leave, or who wants to do this thing that requires the flexibility? Whoever, it doesn't matter. You're a boy or a girl or whatever, gender neutral. We don't need to have policies for ones or the others. It just works. Don't be afraid of not meeting all the expectations, and ask for what you think you want to do. Because very often people will be willing to discuss it at the very least. And if you don't ask, you're never going to get it. Ever. Ever. Believe in yourself and speak up.
Yeah, I think that people that work in tech just seem to be so chilled out and friendly. And there are so many resources now, which is great, and increasingly more for women and people of minority ethnic backgrounds. And all you have to do is ask and go and talk to these people, find out what you might be interested in. You don't have to think that it's tech, so I have to be a coder. You might want to, but there's other options.
There's so many things, yeah.
Yeah, there are lots of different types of tech companies. It's not just what kind of job you want, what kind of life do you want? How do you see that all fitting together, and how can you achieve that? I think that's talk to people.
I love the people. I think the tech team in particular is, it feels you're always among friends. So it's great because it doesn't matter what kind of help you need, if you need it, or sometimes even if you don't need it. It can be because you're having a bad day, or because you don't understand something that you need to do, or because you have too much to do, or whatever. There's always someone available to help you in any way or shape or form, either by sitting down with you and working on a problem, or giving you a hug in the kitchen. It's amazing. To me, it makes you feel like coming to work is not coming to work. It's just a different way of doing something that you really enjoy. So it's fascinating.
Yeah. I do feel like it's a really special culture.
Yeah, it is.
I remember when I joined, I was just sitting at my desk, and then all of a sudden somebody started clapping, and then the whole floor was clapping. Yeah. And then I was clapping. I was like, why are we clapping? I asked the person next to me, they're like, I don't know, we just do it sometimes if somebody starts it. It's for something. I was like, that's so nice.
And there's usually genuinely a reason somewhere. Yeah. But the thing is, everyone joins in, and no one feels weird about it. Yeah.
I think the other thing that really struck me was that the people are so good at their jobs, and it's such a nice environment, but there's no ego. There's no one like throwing their weight around or trying to show that they're better. Like, it's just such a collaborative, nice environment.